Hi, my name's Stephen. I'm profoundly deaf and I use British Sign Language. I have a cochlear implant this side and a hearing aid on the other side. My job at the moment, and I've been in post for 4 months to date, is a development worker for Norfolk County Council as part of Adult Social Services. How I found out about the Access to Work scheme was really initially from a deaf professional who was working in the same team as me, but he had a different job. He had 2 different jobs at the time. He had one job within my team and another job outside the team, but he needed interpreters to access his job. But from his feedback I was able to gain more knowledge about it, because initially I had no idea what Access to Work was. So then I could do my own research and find interpreters for my own job, went on from them. So really it was from word of mouth, I have to be honest. I've used Access to Work for 12 years. I've used it in my previous job, previous to this one, and I'm currently using it in my new job. But it's been quite complex. I'm still waiting for the budget to be approved. I'm thinking about comparing my Access to Work from my old job to what it's like in the present day, and there has been differences. Initially I can remember a situation very well in my previous job when I had an annual review for Access to Work. Yes, I do recall somebody visiting me and we did a face-to-face interview. It was like a question and answer session with an interpreter present, of course, and we had an in-depth conversation, and I gave them all the information regarding the reasons why I needed access to work and the type of support that I needed. The assessor's job was to write a report and pass it on. I felt quite positive about that experience, but now it's not so good because I have to call Access to Work via the telephone, and I can't use a telephone, obviously. It's very frustrating. And I have to use an interpreter to make telephone calls, and I'm having to think about all the information. There's always a breakdown of communication. I have support for my work, which entails a BSL interpreter, a British Sign Language interpreter, has to be a highly qualified signer, obviously because my job entails lots of language, lots of jargon, meetings, one-to-one meetings, and that my day varies from day to day. The advice I give to a new person becoming aware of Access to Work is really to understand what your job involves. And also, the details of their own disability, and to be aware of their own problems. And obviously it would depend on the work situation, obviously, where they work and how they arrive at work. There are lots of complex issues, and obviously to liaise with their manager, their HR department, and to see whether they're aware of what Access to Work is, because in my experience often they're not aware of what Access to Work offers. And maybe to go to the job centre, because they should have a disability employment advisor who should be aware of what Access to Work can offer in terms of support. Really, advertising is important for Access to Work. They could advertise via the television, they could do it, on adverts, commercials, just like little clips, and promote their service. So a disabled or deaf person, for example, they would know what it was all about. But I think disability employment advisors should explain more about Access to Work and take more responsibility for that, because really lots of people are not aware of it, and there's a lack of information. I think personally they should change the way that they send their letters out. Because at the minute you get a letter and you panic because it says please phone. And things like that. It's horrible. Like with reviews and things. And sometimes it says something more or less lines that they're going to stop my Access to Work, and it makes you panic, and I can't phone. And you always have to phone them, or things like that. I can't phone them if I haven't got an interpreter with me. But, I can phone, like I said, with an interpreter. Sometimes there's, the information is not clear. And sometimes I say to them, could you email me the information? And then sometimes they say to me, what is your disability? But I've said to them, you should have all this information on file. I shouldn't have to explain myself again. I shouldn't have to keep saying that I'm deaf, a BSL user, and I'm speaking by an interpreter. All this information should be on file.